Hello everyone, this is Kelly and I'd like to welcome you to the Honeybee Stamps Autumn Splendor video hop. Check out all of our design team members' videos linked in the description box. We hope you enjoy the inspiration. Now I'm going to be creating with the brand new Patchwork Pumpkin stamp and the coordinating die set. Now this die set allows you to create a 3D pumpkin, as you can see here, out of just plain colored cardstock, or you could use patterned paper, as I've shown here. You could use the stamps or the coordinating stencil set. Now, first off, I want to show you how easy it is to create just a one-layer flat pumpkin. So you can do that with the 5-segment pumpkin or the 3-segment. Now, the easiest thing to do when creating a 5-segment pumpkin is to take the images on the outside there in your stamp set and use those on the outside segments of your pumpkin. There's a couple of ways that you can stamp that. And the first way I'm going to show you is starting from the outside segments and working my way in. So I'm just going to choose that braided or basket weave design. I'm going to set that down there, and I'm really getting down to the sides of my MISTI. You can kind of see my head there in the way, but I want to make sure that that lines up nicely in that segment for this pumpkin. I'm just using all different colors of Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to stamp down that green ink, make sure everything's pressed into place, and then you can see there's a small little white gap over there on the far right side. That's what you want. There's going to be little gaps in between your segments, and that is perfect. You don't want these to butt up against one another, or then your designs will be off just a little bit. So next I chose an outside layer, which is little polka dots. I've got that back into my stamp set, and now I'm going to work my way towards the inner rings. So I've chosen kind of a cute hexagon design. Again, I'm getting way down my head there by the desk to make sure everything's lined up, and then I can close the MISTI door, put down my ink, and then close the door again and transfer the ink to the paper. Now, as I mentioned before, there is going to be a little gap between your patterns, and that's what you want, just a little tiny gap between each one. That makes sure that everything is going to line up nicely. I'm going to set the next plaid pattern down into its little segment, close the door. I just have a yellow ink. I'm going to press the lid of my MISTI down, and then you can again see that I have a little gap all the way around. And now I'm ready for the center oval piece. So I'm getting that lined up. You can see my head way over the top there, and I've moved my MISTI down so I can really get that lined up right there into that oval segment. And then I'm going to choose another color ink and then stamp it down. And then this 5-segment flat 1-layer pumpkin is all ready to go. Now the next way you can stamp your pumpkin is by starting with the center first. And I actually find this to be the easiest way if you're going to do a 1-layer pumpkin, to start with that center first, get that oval out of the way, and then you can line up those little segments on the sides very easily. So there I have stamped that center oval. I'm going to take that out, and then I'm going to pick out the side segments. I'm going to choose some of those inner segments there in the stamp set. I'm going to line up those stripes. Again, I'm getting my head down on the edge so I can be sure that that's going to line up in that little segment perfectly. When I get at the place that I want it to be, I can close my MISTI door, pick up that stamp, and then apply the ink, close the door again, and then press that ink into the paper. Now I'm going to choose that one more segment to fill in this 3-segment pumpkin. I'm going to choose the little harlequin design and really get my head down there and make sure that that stamp is perfectly aligned inside that little segment. Close the MISTI door, pick it up, choose another color ink, and then press that layer down. And then this 3-segment pumpkin is all done. Now let me show you what these two look like if you were to stack them up. So you could take the two, stack them up, or you can use them flat just as is. Now, I have stamped for my card today the blossoms in the stamp set, the leaves, and then I'm working on the solid stem. So I've stamped that in um, Citron ink, and then I'm going in with Mowed Lawn and one of my Honeybee Stamps blending brushes, and then just adding some darker Mowed Lawn in certain places there on that stem, and you can see the nice color blend. The next thing I'm going to do is take that coordinating stencil, and this allows me to color the little blossoms and the leaves without having to pull out my colored pencils or my watercolors or Copic markers or anything like that. So I'm simply going to align very simply that stencil over the top of my little blossom. I'm going to take a blending brush with some purple ink and then lightly blend on that ink onto the first layer. Now, once I get that done, I can find what is the second layer there. You can see the etched lines, so it makes it so easy to line up that little blossom. And then I'm going to go a little more heavy-handed for those little petals that would be tucked back behind the front petals. So you can see how nicely that lines up. I've got great color there, and I'm ready to move on to the center of the flower. So I'm going to line up the flower's center. I'm going to take some of the Mowed Lawn ink or Citron ink and brush right there in the center. And then that little flower is all colored and ready to go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is the little bud. Move my paper up. I just have an inexpensive sticky mat stuck in my MISTI, and it kind of holds that paper in place. But this little bud is also very easy to line up because the lines are etched into the stencil. So next, I'm going to take the next layer, and I'm going to go a little darker for that petal that's tucked back there behind. I'm just using the ink that's already on my brush and going a little more heavy-handed. Now for a little more detail, I'm going to line up the next layer, and I'm going to kind of push it up from the bottom. And that adds darker ink from the bottom of those front petals to the top. Next, I'm going to line up the stem piece, and again, use the same green ink, brush over the top, and then the little bud is all ready to go. Next, I can brush on color for the leaves. I can take that stencil and line it up. Now this time, I'm going to go over with some Citron Oxide ink and give it an all-over little brush of color. And then I'm going to take Mowed Lawn and just darken it from the bottom side and then working my way up towards the top. So the bottom of those leaves will be darker than the top part. Now the next thing I can do is line up that smaller leaf, and again start with my Citron ink, and then take the Mowed Lawn and just brush from the bottom up. And it just gives that ink a little bit of variation there, and it looks like you have colored it with your Copic markers. It's a nice blend of color. Next thing I'm going to do is flip my paper around in my MISTI and stamp the coordinating sentiment, the Hey There pumpkin that also is found in the Patchwork pumpkin stamp set. Now I love to use VersaFine Onyx Black ink for my sentiments. It's nice and crisp and black. Now I can take the coordinating dies, and there's even a die for that sentiment, and cut everything out. So I'm just going to line my dies, cut it out, and it's all ready to go. Now I'm going to make an orange jack-o'-lantern. You can see I have the 5-segment pumpkin, the 3-segment, and then the oval. My pumpkin at the very end is going to be a 3D pumpkin. So let's get started stamping my 3D pumpkin. Now I'm going to choose the outside segments for my 5-segment pumpkin. So I've got some polka dots. Again, I got right down to my desk to make sure everything was lined up nicely. I'm going to stamp that a couple of times, and again, I'm using that VersaFine black ink. Next, I'm taking the chevron, making sure it's all nicely lined up, and again, just stamping that with the black ink. And then there's no need for me to stamp the inner segments of this pumpkin because I'm going to layer those together. So that part of the pumpkin is finished. Next, I'm going to take the 3-segment pumpkin, line up the plaid into the outer segment there, and again, I'm just going to stamp it in the same black ink. Press down the door of my MISTI a couple of times to make sure it's nice and crisp. And then that segment is ready to go, and I'm ready for the Harlequin on the other side. So I love that little diamond design, making sure everything is lined up so I get my head way down there by my desk. Again, I'm going to ink this up with black ink, and then that is all ready to go. Again, because I'm making this a 3D pumpkin, I don't need to stamp the center oval. So I'm going to take that out. You can see what that's going to be looking like at the end when it's all layered together. And now I'm ready to put the oval into my MISTI and stamp the last pattern. So I'm going to get down again, make sure everything's nicely lined up inside that die cut, and again, stamp it with the black ink. Make sure everything's pressed down, and then my center oval is all ready to go. So here are all my die cuts ready. Now I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape to the back segments or the back parts of my pumpkin just to make it have a little bit of dimension and really get that cool 3D look. So I'm going to place the 3-segment pumpkin and line it up over the top of the 5-segment pumpkin. And you can see how cute those little designs and textures all line up and make a cute patchwork pumpkin. Next, I add some foam tape to the center oval, and I'm going to pop it up in the center. And my pumpkin is all built and ready to go. I am going to take the blossoms, and sorry, I'm kind of a little bit off screen here, but I just take a little foam pad and a stylus, and I'm going to give those little blossoms just a little bit of a curl. So you can see me working on the little bud here. I just roll that little stylus around, and it's going to give those flowers a little bit of shape. Okay, now for my card base, I just have a white side folding card base that I'm going to use horizontally, so it's going to open on the top. I'm using some of our Halloween Harvest paper pad here. That's that beautiful purple plaid. I'm going to add a black layer on top of that, so that pumpkin is really going to pop off the top. And as you can see, for this card, I'm using kind of fun Halloween colors with the orange and purple and lime green. Next, I'm going to adhere my ink blended stem. I'm going to tuck it right in between the layers, get it all set up, and now my pumpkin is ready to add some of our Be Creative Precision Tip glue and add that right to the center of my card. I'm going to get that all pressed into place and make sure everything is lined up. And then I can start adhering my cute little floral die cuts. I add a little bit of our liquid glue to that and slide it into place. You can see the nice dimension that I have there from rolling around those little stamped and die cut florals on my little push pad with a stylus. Next, I am going to take those leaves, and again, I'm going to give those leaves just a little bit of shape with the stylus. And on the back of this leaf, because there is a hollow space back there, I'm going to use just a couple of small slivers of foam tape. So I stack 2 pieces of foam tape, one on top of the other, and then now I can take the backer off and add that into place right where I want it, and it's going to again have nice dimension. And because I have the foam tape back there, that dimension is not going to collapse on the front of my card. I'm going to curl the next leaf, the smaller leaf, in the opposite direction, add a little bit of liquid glue, and then press it down. I'm going to hold it into place to make sure it all connects to the paper. And then just for a little bit of fun, I'm going to add some black and white twine tied in a bow, and I'm just going to tuck that right in between the leaves and the little bud there. Get all of the little strings and things all nice and straight. And after I have my bow adhered, next I can take that sentiment, the Hello Pumpkin, which I have die cut with the coordinating die. I can add a little bit of glue and a little bit of foam tape on the back of that and adhere that to the bottom right side of my little patchwork pumpkin. I hold it up to make sure that sentiment is nice and straight. And then for just a little something, there is a gem set that goes along with the Halloween Harvest 6x6" paper pad. So I'm going to take a couple of the black gems, place on the center of my flower just to kind of tie everything together. So here is a look at the finished card. And then here is a close-up. You can see the stencils where I did no coloring, just did some ink blending on the flowers and the leaves, and then that cute little patchwork pumpkin. So again, I hope you'll join us today for our Autumn Splendor video hop. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.